Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in. So I wanted to talk about something today that a lot of people have come to me for readings about, like a Kharmic and a soulmate, that type of thing, and even twin flame connections. Many of you have probably heard of the term soulmate, twin flame, and karmic connections. What I really want to touch on right now is I want to talk about something regarding karmic connections. Okay, so karmic connections are not designed to last. And a really good way to think about it is this. Some people have trouble coming away from a karmic connection. Many people do, actually. And that's because it's all rooted around influence, like external factors. Okay, so the thing is that people think that whenever they get into a soulmate connection or a twin flame connection, which a twin flame connection is very much like a soulmate connection, but it's more intense and it's difficult. But the thing is that when people think that a lot of people think that whenever they meet the one, that it's going to be perfect. It's going to be absolutely no problems. My white knight or whatever you want to call it, in shining armor, is coming to rescue me. And my princess is here, everything's going to be fine. But that's not the case. These connections require work as well. Particularly twin flame connections, they do. They're the biggest amount of work in a soulmate connection that there is, probably. But we'll get into that in a different video. The thing is that a lot of people think that, everything's going to be smooth sailing when you meet your soulmate, when you meet the one. But here's the reality. This is not a Disney movie like we're told. I mean, we've been told this for a long time. I mean, whether or not you've actually been verbally told it or just subconsciously told it. I mean, we see it in movies, we see it in films, we see it in TV shows, and I'm 40. So I grew up in the 90s, and, so there was a lot of, television programs that, like my parents, for instance, my parental figures and like older figures in my family, I grew up watching. And, it's like, I feel like it has like the dynamic in the relationships. It has a lot of influence on people, even at a young age, like even whether or not we realize it or not. The thing is that soulmate connections, they're not like Disney movies. I mean, yes, soulmate connections are there to help you. They have one purpose. They're there to make you be the best version of yourself, to be a better version of yourself. The thing is that they require work. Yes, soulmate connections you will know a soulmate connection instantaneously, but you will feel the dopamine rush that you get. You will feel that, this person's really tuned into me. It's just a feeling that you get. And I know you know what I'm talking about if any of you have ever been in a soulmate connection. You can have more than one soulmate also. But anyway, so the original dopamine rush that you get with a soulmate, it's very real. But it doesn't mean that every single moment is going to be like that. I speak from experience on that. I mean, I've been in soulmate connections before, and there are some really great moments, a lot of great moments, but there are also moments where you're going to learn from the other person, and the other person is designed to teach you something, and vice versa. You're there to teach them something about themselves. You're there to help each other, like a partnership, right? The thing is that it's just, I think that there can be some Disney-like moments for sure in soulmate connections. And let's see, sorry, I got distracted. But overall, I think that, I feel that the whole reason that we unite with soulmates is so that we can undo a lot of programming that we have been taught through cultural conditioning. It's everywhere around us. Like, you're supposed to get married. You're supposed to, or maybe, if you're not really a fan of marriage, that's okay. But it's still like there's this idea that we're supposed to be in a relationship with someone, right? And it's really important to not settle for for the wrong person, because of that. And the thing is that when you settle for the wrong person, that's called a karmic connection. Karmic connections are not good. They're crappy. The thing is that karmic connections they're designed to show you things that you need to work on within yourself. And you'll know this because at some point in the relationship, well, hold on, let me go back. I want to let me just stay with the soulmate part, okay, for now, because I want to touch on that first, and I don't want to go too off topic, so sorry about that. But anyway, the thing is that with soulmate connections, we have to do we have to undo a lot of programming that we've been taught through cultural conditioning, like I was saying. And the reason why so many soulmate connections, not all of them, but some of them do fall apart, is that people refuse to learn from one another. That's the thing. I mean, it's like when everything's good in a soulmate connection, it's really good, and there's no problems, things like that. You don't have any problems. Life is good. You might go on vacations together. You might, live in a really great place together. You may have the perfect house and everything else, and perfect family, whatever. But when things get rocky, that's when problems come in, and there will always be problems whether or not how well you plan for them. I mean, it's just life. I mean, things get thrown at you all the time. It's how you handle them, though. But the thing is that in soulmate connections, sometimes people can they can lose focus of what the connection is about. They can let their anger get the best of them. They can let, the situation that they're going through, the problems that they're going through, money, financial, whatever, just take over. And that's when the learning stops with soulmate connections, if you're not willing to grow to one another with one another anymore. But there will be a point in soulmate connections that you will be growing with the person, and you may grow with them forever, as long as you live. And that's great. That's the goal of a soulmate connection, but it doesn't always mean that you'll stay with that person forever. But going back to what I was saying before, the reason why so many soulmate connections do fall apart, or sometimes fall apart, I wouldn't say so many, but sometimes they do fall apart, is that people refuse to learn from one another. They refuse to learn, the mistakes that they make. I mean, people have to own up to that, right? We have to own up to our mistakes. And the other person is designed to help you realize that, because most of the time, your soulmates are going to differ a lot from you. I mean, they may not differ, you might have a connection with someone who's a soulmate that you're a lot alike, but I promise you there's always going to be a few things that are different, and you're going to have different ways of doing things. And that's where the challenges lie, because there's probably something that you know how to do better than the other person, and vice versa, that they know how to do better than you. And you just have to be open to learning, because that's what it's about. Let's see, what else did I want to say? So here's the thing. Let me touch on karmics now, because this is a big deal. Karmics are connections, and we have a lot of them usually in life before we find a good connection. And sometimes, even after a good connection goes sour or whatever, we can fall into a karmic connection. Karmic connections come in when we are at our lowest point. Maybe not our lowest point. It can be our lowest point, but it can also be, excuse me, it can also be like when you're just, you're not really in a good vibration. You don't really have a good attitude about things. Maybe you got dumped. The last person you really loved dumped you, something like that. You're on the rebound. Karmic connections happen in rebounds. They can be a rebound person. They're always focused on external factors. That's the thing. It's usually financial, sexual, toxic behavioral patterns that bring you two together, something like that. Or, it's a rebound, right? It's usually very shallow stuff. It's like external factors, like things to do with the outside world, a lot of times, right? Maybe it's a connection that looks good on the outside, but it doesn't feel so good on the inside. Maybe it's just for show, right? And karmic connections, see, hold on, I lost focus, sorry. The thing is that in contrast to soulmate and twin flame connections, karmic connections do not require you to do any changing. That's the thing. They also always bring in unnecessary problems into your life, because there's always one person that seeks to have complete control over the other, or more control, right? You will also notice in karmic connections, like I said, there exist a lot of, external and shallow factors: financial, sexual, toxic behavioral patterns. You have to be able to move past. The thing is with karmic connections, you have to be able to move past cultural condition, what we've been taught from childhood. And we've seen these things in older generations, people that have raised us before. And the thing is that if you want, sorry, my computer keeps acting weird. Hold on, I just don't want it to lose power. 1 second, guys, sorry. Okay, so also with karmic connections, I'm not saying that everybody that's from a past generation, an older generation, has married a karmic. I'm not saying that. There are some, I believe, that have been with their soulmates. But here's the thing. I think that a lot of the older population, from what I've observed, did marry karmics. Because I've just seen myself, observed myself. I mean, I've seen it before, where they stayed together for whatever reason. And the thing is that, a lot of people like to glamorize, like the 1950s and the 60s and the, even in the 70s marriages, because people didn't get divorced back then, as much, if at all. I understand some of that if it's a healthy connection. I do. But for instance, I'm going to use an example. My parents were karmics. They were. I wasn't there when they met, but I know that they got married and then they had kids and, they were working and all that stuff. And then years later on down the line, it was toxic between them. And I've seen this in other people's parents as well, certain people. And these people say, well, you stay together because, you work on your marriage. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that's great. If you want to work on your marriage, but you have to do the work. You have to change, right? A little bit. You have to compromise. And if you can't do that, and if you find that you cannot do that, you're not in a soulmate connection. You're in a karmic connection. And a karmic connection is really bad. It's there to show you the worst side of yourself. Because usually when you're in a karmic connection, it's always like this. Like, when people are in karmic connections, you can see how they feed off of each other's toxicity, right? It's like I said, it's always, I'm gonna list these things again. It's always external factors that keep them together, and they don't last. That's the thing. Eventually, they will go away, but it's always financial. It's always sexual. It's always ego. Maybe you both like one up each other, that type of thing, and make each other, maybe it's like a little competition with ego or something like that, or toxic behavioral patterns. It's always toxic. Karmic connections they're not designed to last because they're there to show you the parts of yourself that's not great. You need to work on it. And we all have those parts. I mean, I was with a lot of karmics whenever I was younger. I was. And they're very childish, like, connections. I mean, when you're in the connection with them, you always find yourself guessing. You always find yourself guessing with these people. You always find yourself wondering what what are they doing? They're not calling me, that type of thing. And I'm not saying that in soulmate connections, you can't feel some of that too, but it shouldn't be a lot of that in soulmate or twin flame connections. Well, twin flame connections, you can. That's a whole different connection. You can definitely feel that in a twin flame connection too, like you're being ignored. But I'm not going to get into a twin flame video today because it's a whole video within itself. Anyway, but I mean, karmic connections are they're not designed to last, basically. Okay. And what bugs me is that society, like, it teaches us, even at a subconscious level, even if it's just at a subconscious level, we have all been influenced by it at some point in time, because you see it on TV. I mean, you see these happy couples, and you see toxic behaviors that go on within the connection. And it's like, that's not healthy, right? That's not cool. And it's like, it's frowned down upon to, people do divorce nowadays and things like that, but it's frowned down upon. It used to be frowned down upon to get a divorce. And it's weird because, in karmic connections, I feel a lot of those people pass down their behaviors, like, to their children, and their children saw, these toxic behavioral patterns that their parents did, or that their elders, whoever raised them, did. And now they're in those kinds of connections themselves as adults, and it's a mess. But it's like they never feel fulfilled. But it's like with karmic connections, it's like a subconscious TV program that's playing over and over in your head based on what you grew up watching other generations do. I mean, that's my point. So, pay attention to how someone makes you feel. Listen to your gut. It's never going to steer you wrong, because if you have a weird feeling about somebody, or if you feel like if you're in a connection and you do not feel like it's healthy anymore, like you're not feeling like you're growing with this person, you don't feel like there's mutual respect, pay attention to those feelings, because they're there. Sometimes the simplest answer is the obvious answer. I mean, that's the way it is. Pay attention to how your gut is what your gut is telling you, because it's never going to steer you wrong. Okay. And it's the only way that you're going to be able to remove a karmic connection in your life. All right. And then, let's see what else did I want to touch on. One second, guys. Sorry, I'm trying to get my computer to work so it doesn't go off my phone computer. One second. The camera's like weird. It's acting weird. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so also something else I want to say, is in conclusion, make no mistake about it, okay? Soulmate, twin flame connections, they are work. They are. You will change if you're in these connections. You will. But they are also the most satisfying connections too. Okay, so anyway, I just wanted to jump on here and talk about my thoughts and my experiences with these types of connections. And I hope that brought some insight to you. What I would really love is if you guys would tell me about any kind of connections you've been in that are similar. Like, what are your karmic connections? What are your soulmate connections? What are your twin flame connections? What have they been like? What have they taught you? What have they taught you don't want to be like? All right. But anyway, I hope to hear from you guys. You can comment below or just message me. Anyway, I'll be back with another video later. All right. Bye. Take care.